Hello students, from today onwards we are going to start a series of lectures on the history of English literature. So if you are preparing for UGC NET or JRF exam, or if you are preparing TGT or PGT or MA entrance or PhD entrance exams, then these lectures are going to be very helpful to you. So friends, now let's begin. Today we are going to discuss Geoffrey Chaucer as a poet and his contribution to English poetry. We know that Geoffrey Chaucer has been considered as the first poet, the father of English literature, also known as the father of English poetry, who lived in England during the 14th century. Remember these dates. He was born in 1340 and died in 1400. We are mainly concerned with his contribution to English poetry. Okay, so if you examine the whole biography of Geoffrey Chaucer, his critical works, the critical output can be divided into three different phases of his life, and these three phases are the French period, the Italian period, and the English period. In each of these periods, we find some development of Geoffrey Chaucer as a poet. Now let's begin with the first period, French period. See, friends, when Geoffrey Chaucer was about 19 years old boy, he went to France, and during that period he met so many French writers. As you can see on the screen, he met Machot, he met Guillaume de Loris, he also met Jean de Meung, and as a result, he was much influenced by the French writers, and we find that during this period, which period? From 1359 to 1372. During this period, we find that Geoffrey Chaucer published the Roman of the Rose, which is a very long poem of about 7,700 lines, and it is a poem full of allegory. What is allegory? I have already uploaded another video on allegorical poems, so you can watch that. But this poem is an allegorical poem, which is the first poem written by Geoffrey Chaucer. Then later on, during this French period, he also published Book of the Duchess, which is actually an elegy. Elegy means when you shed tears after the death of someone, okay, when you express your sorrow after the death of some near or dear one. So Chaucer wrote this Book of the Duchess to express his sorrow after the death of Blanche, the wife of Chaucer's one of the supporters. Okay, and the third important poem written by Chaucer was Campaign to Pie, which is a love poem. Now, if you come to the second phase in the life of Geoffrey Chaucer, it is known as Italian period. Okay, during this period, he visited various regions of Italy, various places in Italy, and there he happened to meet Dante, an important poet, Italian poet who wrote the Divine Comedy. He also met Boccaccio, he met Petrarch, and so many other poets. So here, during this period, we find the influence of Italian literature on Geoffrey Chaucer's poetry. One important poem written by Chaucer during this period is Troilus and Cressida. Now, this poem again is a very lengthy poem, written in 8,200 lines. Remember these figures because many times in entrance exams the examiner asks such questions. Which was the first poem written by Chaucer, or how many lines are there in Troilus and Cressida, and so on. Okay, so remember this: Troilus and Cressida, 8,200 lines, and this was actually an adoption of Boccaccio's stories, which are entitled as Second Filostretto, right? And the second poem written during this Italian poem was The House of Fame, which is again an allegorical kind of poem, which is full of satire also. Okay, the third important contribution by Chaucer during this period is the legend of good women, right? And this poem narrates 19 tales of various women. Actually, Chaucer planned to write 19 stories, but he could finish only 8 stories. And the next one is Annelida and Arcite and the Parliament of Fowls, which are comical poems, right? Full of comedy. Now comes the most important contribution by Geoffrey Chaucer in the last phase of his life, which is known as English period, okay, from 1386 to 1400. And here it is during this period that we find Chaucer's best contribution to English poetry, and that is the Canterbury Tales. Here, Chaucer has presented 29 characters, including himself, and this poetry is written in about 17,000 poetic lines. Here, he has narrated 24 stories in his Middle English language. Okay, and here, we find much of realism. Means he gives a realistic picture of English British society of the 14th century, and that's why John Dryden has commented that here is God's plenty. Means all different characters, real characters from different walks of life have been realistically presented by Chaucer in the Canterbury Tales. And this poem, this poetry, Canterbury Tales, is also known for Chaucer's humor, Chaucer's satire, and his art of characterization. So, all in all, we can say that his career as a poet can be divided into these 3 periods: French period, okay, then Italian period, and the last one English period, where we find the Canterbury Tales. I hope this video is helpful to you. If you really like this video, please share it among your friends and click on the bell icon. The next video will be uploaded the day after tomorrow. Thank you.